Hello, everyone. I get some questions from time to time. I answer them on podcasts, but recently a fellow asked me a series of questions in my YouTube email box and asked me to do a video response. He says he was raised in a Jehovah's Witness family, but he's asked Jehovah's Witnesses questions they couldn't answer, and some of these are pretty simple questions. So I don't know. Maybe you didn't ask the right person, but he said, I would love you to make a video and ask Jehovah's Witnesses this. Okay, so question number one. Do Jehovah's Witnesses believe and teach that there is only one God called Jehovah? Well, yes. That's a clear Bible teaching. People may take issue with the pronunciation Jehovah, but I've done a few videos on that. Of course, we know that God's name was spelled in Hebrew with 4 consonants, YHWH, but all Hebrew names that begin with a Y in Hebrew are translated into English and other Romantic languages using a J. In Hebrew, God's name was probably pronounced Jehovah. So in English, the equivalent is Jehovah. And Jehovah's Witnesses believe and teach that Jehovah is the only true God. In fact, Jesus Christ said that his Father was the only true God. You can read that in the 17th chapter of John. It was a prayer that Jesus uttered on the night of his arrest. And it referred to his Father as the only true God and himself as being the one whom the only true God sent forth. For some reason, there's so much confusion about who Jesus is, his relationship with God. People cannot grasp the concept of a father-son relationship. But repeatedly, Jesus referred to God as his Father, and Jehovah even spoke from the heavens and said, "This is my Son." For some reason, though, Trinitarians cannot understand that simple concept. Oh, no, Jesus is the part of the God. He's equal. God didn't create. He didn't give life to Jesus. They just, I guess, like to go through the charade of pretending to be a father and son. Yeah, okay, well, we'll let them sort that out with Jehovah when the time comes. Do Jehovah's Witnesses teach and believe that Jesus Christ, when walking on earth, was Michael the Archangel in the flesh? No, Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe that. We believe that Jesus Christ was the firstborn Son of God in heaven, long before he ever became the man Jesus Christ, and that he was Michael the Archangel, a God. He left that behind. The 2nd chapter of Philippians says that even though he existed in God's form, gave no consideration to a seizure, namely that he should be equal to God. I said, no, but he emptied himself and took on the form of flesh, of men. So by emptying himself, he was not some God incarnate. He left his divine nature behind in heaven, totally. That's what it means. He forsook his divine nature. Number 3, do Jehovah's Witnesses believe or teach that when Jesus was walking on the earth, that he was a God? Again, no. Jesus was not a God-man. He was a man, a human. He had left behind his divinity, his place next to Jehovah. And as a matter of fact, back in the 17th chapter of John, where Jehovah referred to his Father as the only true God, he said, glorify your Son with the glory that I had alongside you before the world was. So he was asking to take back his divine nature and to gain back what he had given up. Jesus is called the last Adam, or the second man. Paul referred to him as such in the 15th chapter of 1 Corinthians, and explaining the resurrection and Jesus' ransom sacrifice. The first man, the first Adam, the first perfect man that Jehovah created, became sinful and brought sin and death upon himself and his then unborn offspring. Jesus Christ was the second perfect man that God created. The value of his life corresponded with that of Adam. Jesus could not be a God-man. That would not be a corresponding ransom. But Jesus gave his life, an equivalent life to what Adam had. And by that means, Jesus is able to buy back sinful mankind. That's the ransom sacrifice. So it wouldn't have worked if Jesus was a God. It's true he left behind his divine nature, as I said. And then when he was put to death in the flesh because he had been born again, Jehovah took him back into the heaven. Actually exalted him to a higher position than he had before. And that's why we see, for example, in the 12th chapter of Revelation, Michael and his angels battling with Satan and his angels, and Michael throws them out of heaven. Prior to that, you recall that Michael had a dispute with the devil about Moses' body. This is before Jesus came to the earth. And Michael said, "May Jehovah rebuke you." But now, after his ascension, he has greater authority, and he takes the fight to the devil. And another question here, I guess, the same as the other one. Do Jehovah's Witnesses believe or teach that Jesus is a God? Well, yes. John 1:1, which he quoted earlier. For some reason, people don't understand, are not willing, I should say. People are not willing to dig in and understand the Greek and why the New World Translation is correct in stating that in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was a God. Literally in the Greek, it says in the beginning, the Word was with the God, and the Word was God. We don't use, in English, we don't construct sentences that way. The God is in reference to the only true God. Referring to Jesus as a God distinguishes him from the God, because in the English we don't say the God, it just says God, but that's not what it said in the Greek. If people were really interested in finding the truth, they could sort through this. But anybody that grasps the Scripture and thinks that they understand the whole doctrine of the identity of Christ, or whatever doctrine you're talking about, they're intent on deception, deceiving themselves primarily, unfortunately. But that's the way it is. Most people are not going to receive the prize. Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, many people will say to me in that day, "Lord, Lord, did not we prophesy in your name and expel demons in your name, perform many powerful works in your name?" And Jesus will say to them, "I never knew you. Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness." So it's not even a matter that people at one time had been Christians and became unfaithful. It's that they never were Christian to begin with. Jesus said, "I never knew you." And certainly, when people believe that Jesus is God, they don't know Jesus and they don't know God. And consequently, God and Jesus do not know them. Of course, they know who they are. But when Jesus said, "I never knew you," that means he never recognized them as being one of his followers. So it's getting pretty late in the day, friends, and it's time to stop stumbling around with some of this baby stuff of scriptures. If you really want to know the truth, it's out there. And like Jesus said, it's just a matter of asking, and keep knocking, the door will be open, keep asking, and it will be given you. But don't settle for this nonsensical Trinity stuff and all that business. It's just, well, it's ridiculous is what it is. Thank you.